Hey there, my ghosts and ghouls. How's it going? Happy first day of October. It's officially Halloween season, which is my favorite season. It's my favorite season of all. Anyway, you're in for a special treat because you got not one episode of Makeup and Ghost Stories this week. You've got two. Ooh. I'm really excited because this week I had a request, and the special request was of the Bell Witch, the Legend of the Bell Witch. And yesterday I was talking to a friend of mine about it because I was like, man, I'll have to research it or something. I said, because I've heard so many different versions of it and they're all different than what I grew up with. And she was like, well, what did you grow up with? I said, well, my family, we're transplants here. I mean, my mom's side of the family is from Georgia, but my dad's side of the family is actually from Tennessee, Nashville, and right outside of Nashville. So a lot of them live on the family homestead in Lyles. I have a good many that live in Nashville proper. So like in the summers, I used to go to Tennessee. That's second home to me. When I was talking to my friend, she was like, why research it? Tell everybody the story that you grew up with. You know what? That's a good idea. I should do that. I'm totally going to tell everybody the story I grew up with. So, Bell Witch. This story takes place at the Red River. I think it's called Adams, Tennessee now. But it's just on the outskirts of Nashville. So, from what we were told growing up, John Bell and his wife, I believe her name was Lucy, moved from North Carolina down to Red River. Now, and like I said, I'm pretty sure the name of the town is Adams now, but it was Red River when it was originally like settled. And they set up a homestead there. They started farming. They actually were doing really well for themselves. You know, things were looking good for them. Another family called the Bates, if I'm not mistaken. The Bats. The Bats, that was their name. It was Kate and Frederick. Their family also moved down from North Carolina, to Red River and set up a homestead. Now, to begin with, everything's fine. You know, everybody got along. Everybody was prosperous. The homesteads were doing well. Red River was doing well. Well, Frederick got hurt working on his farm, and he got hurt to the point that he was disabled. He was physically disabled, and he couldn't provide for his family anymore. And so that put the Bats family into like the serious financial crisis. So he decided he was going to have to sell some of his land, because that's the most valuable thing. I mean, to this day, land is everything. I mean, I would like to own just like a square foot of land just to be able to say I own land. But he decided he was going to have to sell some of his land to be able to support his family, just because there was no other way. They were falling fast. So, who comes calling when it comes to buying the land? Well, John Bell, of course. He already owns most of the land, in Red River. So, why wouldn't he buy more? But he doesn't want to pay what it's worth, which is dirty. It's not a way to be liked by your neighbors. As a matter of fact, it's a way for people to not like you at all and think that you're a dick. So anyway, he doesn't want to pay what the land's worth. Frederick is so desperate because he can't support his family that he finally says, you know what? Fine. Screw it. You got me. I'm going to have to take this really crappy offer that you've given me because I need to be able to take care of my children and my wife. Well, John leaves happy that he's purchased this land, but not before he also runs into Frederick's brother. Now this is where the beef really hits home, because there's beef about to happen. Like, we're talking like straight up, like we're gonna bash each other in kind of beef. But with Frederick, he had a couple of slaves for sale because this was still, during that time. I want to say this was in 1817, if I'm not mistaken. It's either, that's something that you can Google, but I'm pretty sure it was like 1817 is when this happened, like when the haunting and all started. Because I know it was like 1847 when the farmhouse was torn down. I'm amazed I remember any of that. Anyway, so Frederick. John's like, hey, Frederick, I hear you got slaves. And Frederick's like, yes, I do. So John chose a little girl, a little girl slave. And the purchase price was negotiated for. He paid the purchase price. But then he decided, well, she's kind of young. I don't know how young she was, but he decided she was a little young and that he thought it would be better if, and I don't know what I'm going to do with my face, y'all, just so you know. He thought it would be better if she spent a few more years with her mom before he took her. So Frederick said, okay, but you've already paid for her. You should go ahead. You should take her because the value changes in slaves with age. Younger ones cost less than older ones. God, I feel so dirty talking about slaves because they're human beings. Like, I feel so dirty talking about human beings like they're a good or a service. But again, these were different times. I have to remind myself of that. So again, if I crack a joke here or there, it's because I'm uncomfortable talking about human beings this way. And it's my coping mechanism. I tend to make jokes. So anyway, he pays for this slave. He pays for it, says he's going to come back for this slave when she's older. Frederick, again, is like, depending on the age of her, is how much she's going to be worth. Well, Kate Batts, she catches wind of everything that's going on, and that's Frederick Batts' wife. People believe she's the Bell Witch, by the way. But she was like, no, nay. You didn't pay a fair price for our land. You paid a fair price for a child slave, but you're wanting to come and pick it up when it's going to be older, when it would be worth more, and you're not going to want to pay for it? No, not okay. You either pay the correct price, or I swear to you, I swear to God, I swear to anyone who can hear me, I will make you pay. Well, you think he listened? Nope. She steamed about it. She's like, you know, I'm going to get him. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to get him. So in 1817, like I said, is when it all really started. John Bell was on his property with his musket, you know, walking, but also hunting, because, you know, you pick your food, you also hunt for your food. This isn't the modern day. You're constantly looking for your food one way or another. So he's walking with his musket, and from what I understand, because I've heard a couple of versions of this, but he saw a creature that looked like a dog, like a really big dog, but it had like the head of a rabbit, and it was like huge, and it scared the shit out of him. I'm gonna use my Morphe palette today, I think, because again, I got no idea what I'm doing with my eyes. That and my Anastasia Beverly Hills Subculture palette. I think those are the two palettes I'm gonna focus on. So anyway, he sees this and he freaks out and he shoots it. And then he runs up to see what he shot, because he's just like, what in the balls did I just kill? And go me, because I just killed it. You know? And he gets up there. Nothing. It's disappeared. No trace of it. So obviously it must be a ghost rabbit dog. Duh. I mean, for me, I'm thinking that it was, you know, a jackrabbit, because if anybody's ever seen a jackrabbit, those things are huge. When I was little, the first one I saw it in Tennessee. It scared the shit out of me because it was so big and they're so fast. So in my head, I'm thinking it was probably a jackrabbit. I mean, that sounds better than one, but who knows? I'm thinking this man's just a little crazy is what I'm thinking. But then other things started happening. So it went from that outside to they started hearing pebbles hit the house at all hours of the night, and like scratching at the windows, scratching at the bedposts. All, you know, it sounded like rats, and it could have very well been rats. Odd smells in the house, and again, knocking. But one of the scarier things that happened, I wish I could remember their daughter's name. I think it was like Eugenie. I'm probably way off with her name. Just because, God, I hadn't heard this story since I was maybe 13. Anyway, she is in her bed. She was, I can remember she was 14. And she was their 14-year-old daughter. And they run into her room because she's screaming. Because something has tied her hair to her bedpost while she was sleeping, like in knots. And was slapping her over and over, and she couldn't cover her face because every time she tried to use like the sheet to cover her face, like it would get like ripped back down, which is wild. That would scare the balls out of me. Like, I'm just saying, it takes a lot to scare me, but if I woke up and something had tied my hair around my bedpost, I'd be scared. Because I don't have any bedposts. So that means they built bedposts in my room and managed to tie my hair around them. And then was slapping me in the face. But anyway, so yeah, for her, she was getting slapped in the face. And she couldn't defend herself. And her family gets in there and they see all these hand marks on her. and she's screaming and crying because she's terrified. Bless her heart. And then the attack stops. And as soon as it stops, they manage to untie her hair. Nobody's sleeping. Things are getting worse and worse. I mean, it's getting down to like, this is some bullshit, y'all. Like, we can't sleep. But this is also back in the times when you couldn't really talk about these things. Because if you talked about these things and it got out in the community that you thought that you had a haunting, it would damage your reputation. Fast forward a little bit. Family's been living with this. Their answer's just been prayer. They've been praying, whatever. John goes to pick up that slave from Frederick because he's decided it's been enough time with her mother. It's time for him to have a slave. By this point, it's been a couple years. So when he initially purchased her, she was worth less than her value then. And again, I feel sick when I talk about slavery because how do you put a value on someone's life, their freedom, their anything? But anyway, again, different times. So he goes to pick up his slave. She's older now. And Frederick is like, her value has increased significantly because she can do more work. Our old deal, I told you before that I wouldn't honor it if you waited too long. So I'm not honoring it. I'll give you your money back. I'm more than happy to do that because I'm an honorable person. I'll give you your money back. But I'm not going to send this slave girl with you for the amount of money that you purchased her for. It's not right. And John's like, no, she's mine. I paid for her. Here's the bill, so. And he takes her. I don't think this was the brightest move on his part. But, some people, they stupid. So anyway, he takes her, and Kate nuts up. Like, she goes ham. She is telling the entire community what a piece of shit John is. Like, she is like, she never says anything bad about Lucy. Just John. Just John Bell. And she encourages her brother-in-law to file a lawsuit for extortion. Because John took that slave and he didn't pay the amount that it was that slave was worth, and that's extortion. Well, John didn't show up for court. Back then, they weren't so good at communicating things. I mean, the Postal Service was around, but they weren't so good at getting your letters to you. You know what I mean? So John claims he never got notified of any of the court dates he had. He had multiple ones. But he didn't show up. And since he didn't show up, Frederick won by default. And the already dwindling reputation that the Bells had in town was like further smeared. Because people had gotten to the point that they were just like, those are bad people. We don't want anything to do with them. They're like, don't talk to them, you know. But something interesting to note is that no one really liked Kate either. She was a very strong-willed woman. She ran her household because her husband was completely disabled. She was outspoken. You know, she didn't take any shit. So a lot of time back then, if you were a woman and you weren't meek, you know, if you spoke your mind, people didn't like you. And if you spoke your mind too much, people thought you were a witch. Because they would be like, did you see how she is acting in church? I saw her blow her nose. I bet that was the devil coming out. Seriously, I'm just saying. People were weird back then. So, yeah. Extortion. He got convicted of it. Town hated him for it. Like, they're like, that John Bell up there with all that land, he's a bad person. And he actually got excommunicated from their church for being an extortionist. Because that was such a sin that you could be excommunicated from a congregation. So now they don't even have the church that they can reach out to for the things that are going on in their house, that are still going on in their house, and now have ramped up even more. Like, things are breaking, things are opening and closing. They're hearing like talk, like yelling outside windows. So John is so desperate, and his health is actually starting to deteriorate. Part of his face is starting to become partially paralyzed. I mean, for me, everybody knows I had my stroke face. It's fine. Apparently his is worse than mine. So yeah, that's going on, and his tongue swells up to the point that he can't eat anymore. So his wife is having to like make soups all the time. Poor Lucy, to try to care for him, to keep him healthy enough to keep working on the farm. Well, then Lucy gets sick, and it's some sort of weird lung infection that apparently was a thing back then. That's not a thing now. Something that's been eradicated since then. But she caught it, and it's something that was often fatal. But instead of getting worse with hers, she got better very quickly. And she reported that at night she would hear Kate talking to her, telling her that she would be okay, and giving her medicine, and that grapes would materialize on her bed for her to eat, like and other fruit. I remember grapes. I don't remember the other fruits for some reason, but I do remember grapes. Apparently they're good for your lungs. So anyway, let me just blend this a little bit because it was looking a little crazy. It's still looking a little crazy. Dear Lord, help. I can't ever just look normal, can I? No. Just can't happen. Anyway, so Kate gets better like way fast. Way faster than what anybody thought would happen. They actually expected it to be fatal. Whereas John kept getting sicker and sicker. Well, around this time, their oldest daughter, like I said, I can't remember her name. She's probably 16, 17 at this point. I don't know. She decides to go walk their fields. She's got the musket with her in case she sees anything. And what she sees is a little girl hanging from a tree in a green dress. Not like hanging, like hanging. And she only sees it for just a minute and then it's gone. And the little girl didn't say anything to her. She didn't know what it meant. She just saw it. That's all she knew. All right. What else am I going to do to this? I know. Glitter. So. I'm going to put this right here. Just need something to stick to. So she sees this and, she doesn't know if it's an omen for something or what it's about, really. She goes home. She tells her family about it, and they're, bless their hearts, at this point, they're just like, and, can't come home with something a little less just dreary and awful, because everything's dreary and awful. Thanks. Life sucks. We're all dying. We've pissed off the wrong person. So come back when you can tell us something interesting. So anyway, she doesn't know if it's like some sort of premonition or what, but the little girl was there. He lives a little bit longer because, I remember this, because, Andrew Jackson, that's right, that one who used to be one of our presidents, he wanted to see a haunting. So he decided to come by the house and see what it was all about. And one of his soldiers was bragging about how he made a silver bullet and he was going to kill that Bell Witch. And so the wheels on their wagon seized up. Like right after dude said it. And Andrew Jackson got on to him. Like I said, he was a general in the army at the time. He got on to him, and then he was like, oh, Bell Witch. Ooh. I don't know how he talked to her, but, oh, Bell Witch, I'm sorry. We won't be disrespectful again. Give us another chance. We're sorry. Like I said, I don't know exactly what he said, but it was enough to appease her, because allegedly, that stuff I used for glue, by the way, didn't work. Allegedly, the Bell Witch said, then you can pass. I'll see you tonight. And that's when the wheels on the wagon went back round and round like the school bus. See if this works. Much better. Glitter. Yeah. I wanted glitter. I got glitter. Yeah. So anyway, Andrew Jackson had planned on staying a week in the Bell house. He wanted to see this haunting for himself. And I don't know how reliable a lot of stuff is that was said about, said about what he said or whatever, because he, as a person, he wasn't actually a very good person. But anyway, they ended up only staying one night. And he said he would rather face the whole of the British Army again than to ever spend another night in that house. So he got his money's worth, I guess. He got scared. That's what he wanted. He wanted to be in a haunted house. So he was in a haunted house. I think it's funny that, an army general got scared. And then that's when John died. like John died soon after that. He died in like December of that year. And interestingly enough, if you look on the records, this is something I do know for 100% fact, because I called bullshit so many years ago, and my dad had to take me to the library so I could look it up because I didn't believe it. It was the first death in the United States that was ruled by supernatural causes. Yeah. It was ruled by ghosts. For real. Also, when he died, his son is the one that found him. And he reported there was an odd smell to the room. But there was like a tincture next to the bed that also had the odd smell to it. And he was like, it's poison. It has to have been poison. Who would have poisoned him? And like a disembodied voice said, Kate. So there's that report of a disembodied voice that says Kate, but then there was another disembodied voice that said Kate, and and that was earlier on when they still had a friend here or there that would at least come and help them a little before they were looked at as total douchebags. I mean, like, that is sad that they didn't have any friends. But the thing is, and I joked about it, like, when it comes to business, sometimes you gotta play a little dirty with business. If you want to get ahead in it, if you want to, like, actually want to be, you know, at the top of your game, but you're not gonna make friends. And like, as for me, like, I'm really good at my job. I always have been really good at my job, but I have such a conscience that I'll never get ahead at what I do for a living, and I know that, like, because I'm not willing to do the dirty work, you know, like, I'm not willing to do it. John, he was willing to do it, and it cost him all of his good relationships except for with his poor wife Lucy. So he didn't have anybody there to help him when he needed it. The other thing too, because you would think that the haunting would have ended altogether with John's death, because it did for the most part. Like, the activity at the house, it stopped. But their oldest daughter, again, went out walking in the field, you know, just walking, wandering. And again, she saw this girl in a tree, hanging in a tree, in a green dress. And she was actually engaged at the time, and I don't know the guy's name. I guess in my mind, it was never important when I was a kid, so it's not important now. But yeah, she saw the girl in the trees again. And this time, the girl spoke to her. Oops. She spoke to her and told her to break off the engagement. Like, it was a, you know, one of those ominous, like, oh, break off the engagement type deals. So, bitch listened. She did. She broke off the engagement with a guy, and then he left town, and that was that. She ended up marrying somebody else, and she was fine with it. I don't know anything about that guy. Don't care. I do know that the farmhouse was eventually burned down, or not burned down, torn down. I think it was in 1847. But as far as Kate is concerned, because again, everybody called her the Bell, just assumed she was the witch, a witch that was haunting the Bells. Well, if you look at the census for this period of time, she was alive. So she wasn't really haunting them. I mean, she could have been a witch. I'm not going to say she could have been a witch, because, I mean, Lord knows, anybody can be a witch if you want to. If you believe hard enough, and you love, doing some witchery, you can totally do it. Trust me. Ask me how. I should have a button that says that. But, I mean, in all seriousness, though, this woman, she may not have been well liked because she was boisterous and a pain in the ass. But there's no proof that she did anything aside from badmouth them, call them out on their bad business, get her brother-in-law to file a legit lawsuit, and, she was the cause of them getting excommunicated from their congregation. Aside from those things, physically speaking, so I don't know if it was Kate so much, because I've heard another variation of this story. See, you thought you were just going to get the one. But the other variation that I heard of this story when I would be up in Lyles was that Kate was wronged by the Bells in a different manner altogether. Yep, her husband, he became disabled. Yep, they sold the Bells land. There was no slave trade in this version of the story that I heard. But what they did is they didn't really pay a fair price for the land. But part of the deal was John liked Kate. He liked Kate. So, in the time frame that we're talking about, he went from, liking her to being able to do something about it, because she was desperate to help support her family. And her husband was aware, at least for the time being, until he passed away. From what I have been told, he passed away first. So, sorry y'all, just working on my eyeball. So, they used to meet at a cave, which is where people talk about now as the the Bell Witch Cave that's up in Adams. But they would meet at the cave, and he would get his payments. Well, eventually, as happens all the time, they made product. And in making product, he would have been ruined in the church, and his reputation would have gone to shit. So he denied anything to do with her from that point on. Yeah, we bought some land from her husband. I hear he's a good guy. I don't really know him. But, I don't really know Kate. Sorry. So, because he denied her unborn child, that was when she cursed him and his family. And it was unbeknownst to him that she was a witch. That's what I was told. So she cast a curse that as long as any of his family members lived in that house, that they would be tormented. And that's why the house was torn down in 1847. Like, that house was not old. Like, they moved into it in 1817. Like, that house got torn down fast and turned into just farmland. And the farmland it's not haunted. However, if you go to Adams, Tennessee, there is a cave that is called the Bell Witch Cave. And you're not supposed to take anything in there with you. It's important. And you're not supposed to take anything out. It's kind of like when you go visit Hawaii. You know how you're not supposed to take any of the lava rocks? Same deal. If you do, that's a show of disrespect, and she'll haunt. You take a haunting with you. She curses you. So bad things will start to happen pretty much immediately, is what the legend is. Like, even if you take a rock, you could have a car accident on the way, leaving out of there. The next day, you could find out your wife's been screwing whoever, or your husband's been screwing a secretary for the last however many years. Like, it's some intense shit. It's yeah. Well, you don't want any of that. Nobody wants any of that. God, I look crazy. But yeah, so that's a version I've heard too. And I don't know which version is more reliable, because the thing with these types of stories is they've been passed down from generation to generation, and they've changed from generation to generation. I can tell you names. I can tell you cities. But I mean, like, as far as the story itself, I'm torn on like how much of what I've told you is accurate. I know a few dates, and I know Andrew Jackson went there. That's something I do know, which I think is the whole reason I ever got told that damn story to begin with, because, oh, Andrew Jackson, isn't that cool? Not really. Have you read any history? Do you know anything about him? Yeah, he was the president. He was also a horrible person. Anyway, like, I'm torn about how accurate it is. That's all. I don't know how accurate a lot of the stuff is. Of the two tales, I think that, the land deal was in both. The bad land deal. The fact that there's a cave that people visit, that could mean something. But I have a hard time believing that he and she ran off as part of their land deal, ran off together, and she got pregnant, and her husband was okay with it, or, at least for a little while, like, because I know that women were kind of like, they were the fair sex, they couldn't vote because they, didn't have brains. I'm just saying that's what they thought of us. But I don't know that of, you know, a farm, like a farmer, a cropper, would trade off his wife and, you know, for some money with the land. I could see that happening maybe if you're in a sharecropping situation, which is basically slavery. I'm not a fan of the sharecropping system that was going on back then. My family, they were sharecroppers for many years, so I know a good bit about it. That's something my grandma taught me about, which is one of the reasons I've learned not to be a lazy person. Just because of what would happen to you if you were a sharecropper and you didn't produce. She's telling me stories about that scare the shit out of me. Anyway, I'm having a hard time figuring out like which one I think is true. So I'd love to hear from you guys which one you think would be more plausible, or which one sounds more like bullshit. I'm almost done, I promise. Y'all are only stuck with me a little while longer. Oh, I just sounded like Gomer. Oh, me. Damn it. You know what? Fuck it. It's just gonna look weird. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna blend it. Blend it, blend it, blend it. And blend it, blend it, blend it. Yeah, it's so funny. Earlier, my boyfriend came by. He comes by usually once a day, which is really sweet. I'm lucky. A lot of people don't realize how sweet of a guy I'm actually dating. But anyway, so my boyfriend popped by earlier, and I had my setup up because I've got my stuff set up in my living room. I don't have a table tall enough for this, and like my stand for my phone, and the cord isn't long enough to get to the electrical outlet in my bathroom. Not that it would have mattered today because I forgot to turn the light on anyway, because it's good enough light in here anyway. So anyway, he came in and he sees all the stuff everywhere, and he sees that I have on my fascinator because, you know, I love Halloween. And he sees this stuff and he was like, I'm not even gonna ask you what you're doing. I was like, you probably shouldn't, babe. I love you. And he gave me a kiss and he was out the door. He was in the house for like all of 3 minutes, long enough to look at me, remember that I'm psycho, and leave. So I just want to share that because I think it's hilarious. By the way, I do want to plug this because it's kind of a big deal. Tonight is the first night of the Dead Stream that is being done for Flickr. Flickr is doing these awesome virtual shows so they can still have music, because during these plague times, you can't have live music anywhere, you know, and be safe. And Flickr is one of the few bars that I'm comfortable going into because they have taken safety so seriously this entire time. But their main source of revenue has always been shows. It's been music. So things are getting a little hairy. They're getting a little scary for my friends. And, you know, I'm friends with the owners. I'm friends with all the employees. Like, I'm friends with the people who used to be able to work the door there. Like, you know, this one means as much to me as Southern Brewing Company does to me. Those are my two places, you know. So I'm plugging for them while I'm doing some more to my face, and while I think about it, and while I was talking about my boyfriend. Anyway, back to my face. So yeah, I'm trying to think if there were any other like things are right around where I was living over the summers that we would talk about. I know Bell Witch was one of them, and that is why I ended up talking about it today. But that wasn't all. I know, like we used to talk about, because the ranch that my great uncle owned, God, it was probably, I know he owned at least, before he started splitting it up between the children and nieces and nephews and grandchildren, he owned around 150 acres of land, and he was so paranoid that he would not put his money in the bank. Didn't believe in banks. And because he lived through the Great Depression. And everybody got their inheritance in silver. You ever heard of that? Well, now you have. In silver. I think it's great. He put his money in silver bars. Because he didn't trust anything. He didn't trust banks. Anyway, I know out there on his ranch, we used to get up in the barn, up above the chicken coop, and talk about, like seeing the scarecrow, because it was country enough that you could holler and no one would hear you. The whole homestead was, its water came from a natural spring, which was crazy, because every once in a while our water pressure would suck, but the water tasted so good. There was a stream that was like right behind there, our creek, that we used to have swimming holes in, and then we had areas back there that were like, you can't go there, such and such drowned in there, and they'll take your feet and they'll pull you under. And then, of course it's not true, but I want to say my cousin Sonny was the one that started that rumor to keep me and the other kids out, because the current was so swift in those areas that if we had jumped in, we probably would have drowned, because it wasn't like a little creek. It was a legit one. All right, I'm almost done with this. I have no idea how I'm going to clean up these eyes, y'all. Look at that. I made a mess. A mess. I may leave them a mess. I know I'll be off of this cast of mine by the time I fix it. But anyway, so yeah, I remember that we were told about, a lady drowning. I know that there was an area of the farm that we weren't allowed to go on. And for me, like everybody knew, if you scared me, I wouldn't do stuff. So I know I got told that the lady in white, who also, by the way, lived behind my house, because my dad said so, that the lady in white would get me if I went playing back there. Again, it was because it was growing up and there were snakes and whatnot, and I wasn't scared of snakes, and everybody knew it. And that's fine, well and good if you were in the barn and you're getting chicken eggs and it's like a bull snake. No big deal. But if you're out, where it's overgrown, you're going to end up with copperheads or something biting you, and you're dead. So to keep me out of areas, they used to tell me crap to scare me. And it worked. I'm trying to think of anything else, though. feel bad that I don't have any more to talk about with Belle freaking Witch. I swore I'd be able to be able to tie them both together, y'all. Maybe if I sing to ya, you won't mind that this is taking too fucking long. 'Cause I would typically never do this stupid makeup on my face that I did just now. It's so rare I get to use this blue mascara. I do love it so. But everybody sees colored mascara and they're like, oh no. Have you ever noticed the funny faces that you make when you're putting on makeup? Like, how is that helping? I still don't know. So I am going to ask everybody, again, to pretty, please. With a cherry on top, send me suggestions of things you'd like to hear about. Yes, I've got plenty of things in my head, like, all right, I did this, I could talk about that or whatever. But like, whew, that's bright. But I'd really like to hear from you. I want to hear from you, like, what you would like to hear about. Hopefully a story I can pair makeup with and them end at the same time. That would be amazing. So far, I haven't figured out that fucking trick. Not today, say it. Not today, say it. Oh my gosh, I just need to put on my mascara and then I'm done. All right. Almost there. Wait for it. Yeah, I put lots of layers on because that's what I do. Because I don't have a whole lot of eyelashes. Because when I was in middle school, I thought you were supposed to pluck your eyelashes and not your eyebrows. Guess what don't really grow back? You guessed it. Lashes. And I used to wear fake lashes all the time, but I don't anymore. It's just not very cost efficient. But I do love this Chanel. It is one of my favorites. And it's waterproof. And like, some people are weird about waterproof mascara, and I get it. Because if you don't use the proper makeup remover to take it off, you can rip out your eyelashes. Like, you can damage them and you can rip them out by accident. What you can use that's cheap and it works, I just use baby oil. And that way I get waterproof coverage, which is what I want all the time, because this eye in particular waters 99% of the time. I get asked so often, hey Crystal, why are you crying? And I'm like, I'm not crying, I swear. It's just my eye is watering, because my eye waters all the time. So I want waterproof eyeliner and mascara. Those are two things that are like requirements for me. When I get a primer, I put on a thick enough amount of primer too that I can go, that ain't coming off anytime soon. I don't love this lip color either. This is Smashbox and I don't love it, but it's what I'm wearing this evening, so whatever. My friend Jeannie's talking about going and getting Mexican food with me later. I would be so happy to have Mexican food with her. She is going to be like, oh my God, I'm eating with a clown. And I'm down with that 110%. I love that I look like a clown. And that's probably going to embarrass her a little bit. So there's that. Oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to do, because I was like, glitter. I wanted to put one more like super shiny thing on, because I really wanted to go like, let's prom 2002. Oh my God. Because it's fun. One more thing. Oh, my cat is looking over at me like, what the fuck, Mom? It's nothing, my kitty. I love you. Anybody who hates on people who talk to their cats while they're filming? I just want a little silver. Right here. Just a little pop. There's been random people outside of my house all afternoon, which is weird. I mean, I live in a house that has 5 apartments in it. It's like a super old house that they broke it up into apartments. So I'm used to like hearing my neighbors. You know, I've got one upstairs, one beside me, and then 2 on the other side of the house. Like, so I'm used to hearing like little bits like that, but I'm not used to hearing strangers. I'm gonna go outside like this and scare them. It's gonna be great. Boop. And there's that little silver right there. And right there, like there's a big truck back there. Like, I don't know what's going on. Are they like digging something up? Are they extracting like a body or something? I mean, that would be so cool. Is there a sewage leak? Because that wouldn't be cool. Anyway, so this is my finished, I think. Almost finished. Hold up. I'm gonna use some more so because I want some curl there. All right. Now, this is my finished look. The stupid sun is messing up my lighting. It was perfect earlier, and then the sun came out and was like, hey, I want to join the party. And I was like, hey, no, you're the sun and you're stupid and I'm secretly a vampire. Anyway, this is my finished look. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed both of my tales of the Veil Witch, because like I said, I've grown up with a couple, whereas I have heard a bazillion at this point. So I'm happy that I was able to share the one that I grew up with, or the ones that I grew up with. That's rad. If you have any ideas for what you would like for me to do, aside from put in my nose ring. Ow. Okay, that's better. Feel like a person again. Please let me know. Because again, this was a suggestion from one of you guys. It was from one of my subscribers. And I love that. I'm totally down for, okay, what would you like me to talk about? If it's something I know anything about, I'm on it. If it's something I don't know anything about, I'll at least try to read about it. Because I have ADD and that means I go all over the place all the time. So I'll at least try. But I'd love suggestions. The other thing, please tell me what looks you'd like to see. This, like I said, I'm thinking this looks like a 2002 prom makeup. And I think it's hilarious. I love it. I would wear this for Halloween. Like, honest to God, I would. I already started like watering this out. But anyway, give me suggestions for that too. You know, if there's a makeup look that you're having a hard time with, I'm more than happy to talk about it, you know, like do a tutorial over it, or tell a ghost story while I'm doing it. I know a friend of mine had talked about a smoky eye at one point. If that's something that she still wants me to do, she needs to let me know, because I'm an OG like that. Oh, boom. Check out my crew. So anyway, happy first day of October. Bye, you guys.